Hello Coaster Cult, today we're ranking all the roller coasters at King's Dominion from worst to best. King's Dominion been my home park for years, and it has some very good coasters like Twisted Timbers and Intimidator, and some very good supporting coasters like Flight of Fear and Dominator. The only thing I don't like about King's Dominion's lineup is that they don't really have too much really phenomenal coasters like most of these other parks like Cedar Point or Busch Gardens. That does not mean I don't like King's Dominion's lineup. I think they could still improve over the loss of Volcano, but I think they're doing very well right now. Anyways, let's get to the list. Starting at number 14 is Great Pumpkin Coaster made by Ian F. Miller. This is just a kiddie coaster, so it's really nothing to enjoy here, but I like the pumpkin cutout and the theming. It's pretty good, but nothing too special, so let's move on. Coming in at number 13, it's Woodstock Express made by Philadelphia Toboggan Coaster. This roller coaster is a wooden kiddie coaster, but it's more thrilling than the normal kiddie coasters though. The coaster has some good laterals, a pretty good drop, and some airtime. The only downside I have with this roller coaster is it's a little bumpy, but it's not that bad though. But if you have a little kid, they'll probably like this roller coaster. Anyways, let's move on to number 12, which is Racer 75 made by Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters. The reason why I put this coaster so low is it's mainly about airtime, but it gives no airtime. And it's a little rough at some points. And this coaster does not duel very often either. The only thing I really like about this coaster is the drop and the dueling aspect, but besides that, there's nothing really good about it. Just too much of a boring ride to put this roller coaster a little higher. Coming in at number 11 is Apple Zapple made by Mock Rides. In my opinion, I think this roller coaster is just okay. The drop is not really that good and the turns are okay. So there's nothing really to enjoy here to me that much. This ride is really good for families, but it's just not what I'm looking for in a roller coaster. The drop is okay, the turns are good, but there's nothing that really wows me about this ride.
Anyways, coming in at number 10 is Grizzly made by Taft Broadcasting. I really don't like Grizzly. This has to be one of the worst roller coasters in the world. I do not get it why people actually like this ride. First of all, let's just start with the roughness. This ride feels like you're getting punched over and over again. I'm just saying, these rides' potholes are brutal. Every time I get off of this, I always get a headache. Positive thing about this roller coaster is the setting. I love the setting for Grizzly. I like all the trees that are around it. It's very beautiful. I just wish it wasn't so rough though. Another thing I like about Grizzly is this ride gives a little pops of airtime during the ride. It may be rough airtime, but at least it's something. The reason why I put Grizzly higher than all the other roller coasters is because it gives a more interesting ride. Like, Racer 75 is not really too bumpy at all or anything, but Grizzly is bumpy, and for some reason that kind of adds on to the ride, and it doesn't make it like fully boring or anything. But it's still Grizzly's downside, and that's why I put it that low. Coming in at number 9 is Reptilian made by Mock Rides. This ride is a bobsled roller coaster, and it's pretty unique to me. Everything about this roller coaster is the second half where you experience all those turns at the end. They're very whippy, and for some reason they gave a little pop of like weightlessness. It's not airtime, but like it's still very fun though. The only problem I have with this ride is the restraints. I kind of do not like the restraints. They feel uncomfortable, sort of. But I think that's the only bad thing about this ride. But I love the color scheme because it's new and all. It's very good. Coming to King's Dominion, make sure you just ride this at least once. It's a very fun ride. I think you will like it. It's awesome. Taking the number 8 spot is Anaconda made by Aerodynamics. For some reason, I'm pretty surprised that I put this ride this high because I really don't like this ride that much, but it's not horrible. In my opinion, the first 2 inversions in the first half are actually pretty intense, which are a loop and a sidewinder. I don't really like the corkscrews though in the second half because they feel very uncomfortable. They don't feel like they're angled very well either, and I did not really like hang time too much. Hang time is just uncomfortable in my opinion, so that's just a no. Another bad thing about this ride is the turns in the second half. These turns are so uncomfortable, it's not even funny. Since this ride has over-the-shoulder restraints, it keeps banging your head over and over again, as you can see in this POV right here. It's very uncomfortable. I don't think anybody could like this. This is the main reason why I kind of don't like this ride, and I don't really recommend it at all, but I think it gives a more satisfying experience though than some other rides that are below. But if you do not like to get headaches, do not ride this ride unless you just want the credit.
Taking the number 7 spot is Backlot Stuck coaster made by Premier Rides. This is definitely the best family coaster at King's Dominion. The only thing I don't like about this ride is the restraints, but I love the helix just starting off the ride. It's just very intense, and it just makes me gray out every time. So that part is really cool. And I like the tunnel too, where you go inside the tunnel and you just twist around. And I like the launch, like when you're going into the tunnel. It's awesome. It's really fun. And this roller coaster just gives some weird, awkward airtime. Like when I get airtime on this ride, I kind of like push into my seat. I don't come out my seat. I like push into my seat. It feels weird. I don't really like that feeling though.
My opinion, this ride has the best on-ride theming in King's Dominion. It doesn't have the best queue theming, I'll get to that later, but it definitely has the best on-ride theming because you see like helicopters, police cars, like lots of signs. It's very cool. And that's like what I like most about this ride. Taking the number 6 spot is Timbili made by SNS Sensei. This ride is King's Dominion's newest roller coaster for their Jungle Expedition area of the park. This ride is known as a SNS Free Spin. For those of you who do not know what an SNS Free Spin is, it's basically like a wing coaster but the seats flip, depending how much people there are. Most people are probably not going to agree with me here, but I think this is the most intense roller coaster at King's Dominion, more than Intimidator 305. The reason why I think this is because I got 7 flips one time and my legs felt very numb. This mostly happens when I get a train by myself. I'm more than likely probably going to get a train by myself when I go back to King's Dominion again. Taking the number 5 spot is Volcano made by Intamin. In my opinion, this ride is heavily overrated. I think it's mostly because of the second half. It just doesn't really do much for me. All it does is just twist around the volcano, and that's just not enough for me. But I like the first half though, because the first launch really caught me off guard, and the second launch just gets you up to speed a lot. So that part is really fun, but the second half is just kind of boring. And I don't really care that this coaster's gone, because I'm just really excited just to see what's gonna replace it. So I'm just waiting still. Hopefully we get the announcement soon. Taking the number 4 spot is Dominator made by B&M. It really pains me to see Dominator getting kicked out my top 25, but that doesn't mean it's bad though. My favorite part about Dominator is when it's about to go into the Cobra roll because it gives some very strong positive G's. But mostly if you're sitting towards the front. In my opinion, I think Dominator is the most unique B&M floorless. Because all the other B&M floorless roller coasters usually focus on inversions, Dominator mostly focuses on swooping turns. Dominator may not be the smoothest ride, but it's certainly one of the best roller coasters in King's Dominion's lineup. Coming in at number 3 is Flight of Fear made by Premier Rides. This ride has very good queue theming, and this ride is the only ride at King's Dominion that you actually feel like you're gonna die. The most intense part of this roller coaster is at the end where it's doing those really quick S-spins into the corkscrew. That part of the ride, it really feels like the train's gonna fall off, but in a good way. Flight of Fear may not be the smoothest ride, but the roughness really adds on to it in my opinion. What people don't really talk about with Flight of Fear are the operators. The operators do is like tell a funny joke before you're about to launch to build your anticipation up. But in my opinion, I think that really just adds on to the ride, and that's why it's above Dominator. Coming in at number 2 is Intimidator made by Intimate Amusement Ride. This ride is considered one of the most intense roller coasters in the world, and I get it why people say that. The first turn for this roller coaster is very intense, and it gives some very powerful positive G's, and leading up into the airtime hill under the drop, a very high chance that you'll gray out, and if you're not hydrated, it's a very, very high chance that you'll black out. Thing that's very underrated in my opinion about this ride is the airtime hill under the first drop. This airtime hill gives very powerful flowjector airtime, not as strong as Sky Rush's first airtime hill, but it's very strong. Something that people hate on for this ride is that one trim on that airtime hill, like right near the drop. Most people say that airtime hill gives no airtime, but I still get some light floater airtime though. But what I like most about this ride are the crazy snaps. These turns always give me some quick ejector pops and some quick laterals too. This ride may not be the smoothest coaster or have the best first drop, but it's certainly one of the most intense roller coasters I've ridden. Coming in at number 1 is Twisted Timbers made by RMC.
This ride is an RMC conversion of Hurler, and I never ridden Hurler, but I already know this ride is certainly better. This ride is full of ejector hills all over the place. My favorite part of this ride are the 3 ejector hills towards the beginning of the ride. The 3 hills give very sustained ejector airtime as you're cruising through them. Another fun thing to say about this ride is the trick truck double up. For those of you who do not know what a trick truck double up is, it's basically like a double up, but the track is banking different ways. In my opinion, the weirdest element that Twisted Timbers has is the outwards outer bank. So the outwards outer bank on Twisted Timbers is just basically turning you right, then turning you left, and it's facing you outwards, then turning you right again. One cool element that Twisted Timbers has is the barrel roll down drop. This element is just basically a barrel roll used for Twisted Timbers drop. I think Twisted Timbers is one of the best roller coasters in the world, and it's placed 2nd place in my top 25. Anyways, thank you for taking time out your day to watch my video, and see you next time.